and a man who had once lectured others on discipline now listed among those he once pursued. For investigators, the case underscored a pattern becoming harder to ignore: authority figures ensnared not by complex schemes, but by their own arrogance before the lens. Consequences extended to professional decertification, community ostracism, and mandatory therapy protocols. And as one courtroom closed on quiet disgrace, another would open to an even more complicated reckoning, one defined not by exposure or evidence, but by an unanticipated act of grace.
So I was scared. Whoever was inside my apartment was gonna kill me. And I'm sorry.
The sound that passed through an apartment wall that night would soon echo across the nation. A single gunshot fired by an off-duty Dallas police officer inside the wrong home. An action that erased a life and reshaped the conversation about accountability and bias. Amber Geiger told investigators she believed she was entering her own apartment. The door, she said, was ajar, the hallway dim, the layout familiar. Inside stood Botham Jean, a 26-year-old accountant eating ice cream on his couch. Within seconds, confusion turned fatal. Geiger's academy curriculum covered use of force de-escalation, but inadequate scenario-based judgment training amplified her fatal error. In court, the narrative of that night was dissected piece by piece. Defense built its case on mistake, a tragic misperception compounded by exhaustion after a long shift. The prosecution countered that argument, pointing to recklessness and an ingrained sense of authority that dulled her judgment. Under Texas Penal Code Section 19.02, the focus wasn't whether she fired the gun, but whether her claim of fear was reasonable. Texas Penal Code Section 19.02 defined murder as intentional or knowing causation of death, applied here despite claims of accident. The jury's deliberation became more than a legal exercise. It was a confrontation between empathy and accountability, fear and fairness. The courtroom took on a dual identity, one part trial, one part social reckoning. Geiger's uniform stood as both symbol and evidence, representing privilege and power intertwined with tragedy. Media outlets broadcast each proceeding, commentators parsing its implications for years of racial tension and policing culture. Spectators filled the gallery not only for justice in a single case, but for what it represented: how the justice system measures culpability when law enforcement stands on the other side of the equation.